Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH Rebirth of Emperor Yang episode number 85 based on novel. So let's start. With a bang, the figures in the two battle circles retreated hundreds of feet above the sky, and until now, the people below were able to see the situation in the battle circle. Xiao Yang is alone with Zhu Shan and Ruoxue, 2 8.5 stars, which makes Xiao Yang look a little embarrassed. But there's no way. After all, this is the western region. Xiao Yang is under the eyes of the 4 main gates. In order not to storm the open air, he has to use 3000 thunder for the time being. Fortunately, 3000 thunder is a very excellent body method fighting skill below the heaven level. Although Xiao Yang looks a little embarrassed, his overall strength has not been affected. As for the middle-aged man on the other side, his situation is much more miserable than Xiao Yang. Different from the 8.5-star emperor, he is a 9.5-star emperor. Although he is strong, he can't be an opponent in the face of 2 strong men of the same level, Beiwang and Xiaojin. The North King was invincible, and Xiaojin was full of thunder. He fought with him. The middle-aged man was devastated. At this moment, seeing that both sides retreated and had a breathing time, the middle-aged man immediately turned his eyes to Zoshan and Ruoxue. He also saw that Xiao Yang was safe under their attack. Even if he couldn't help shouting angrily, "Bastard! What are you two doing? Can't you even solve a 5.5-star emperor for so long?" In this regard, Zhu Shan and Ruoxue are also quite helpless. They also thought that with their 8.5-star emperor's strength, facing a 5.5-star emperor should be no more than 3 or 2 efforts, but whoever thought that Xiao Yang's speed would be so terrible? With all his efforts, they thought it was almost the same as them. Although they have been in the active state, Xiao Yang can only be beaten passively, but that's it. In a short time, they can't catch Xiao Yang. Although their attack seems fierce, the actual damage Xiao Yang suffered is just some simple skin injuries. Compared with the situation of the middle-aged man, he is nothing at all. If you still can't handle him, you'd better find a way to improve your cultivation. With a roar, the middle-aged man turned his head and shocked his arms. His fighting spirit poured out wildly and turned into a fighting light column. His chi ran through the sky like a rainbow. His body moved, and then rushed to Beiwang and Xiaojin again. The war continues. This. Urged by the middle-aged man again, Zhu Shan and Ruoxue, the 2 8.5-star emperors, were a little anxious. They turned and shouted at Xiao Yang. "Damn. Boy, can you only hide? Oh, you just want me to do it." Smelling the speech, Xiao Yang's mouth slowly aroused a playful smile and sneered. It's just a 5.5-star emperor. How can I be afraid of you? As long as you don't hide anymore, I promise to take you down with one move. There's so much nonsense. If you want to catch me, come on, let me see. Even if I don't hide, what can you do to me? The sound of drinking fell. Xiao Yang's body was shocked violently, and he waved his arm. The different fire in his palms erupted into 2 colorful fire dragons and rushed towards Zoshan and Ruoxue respectively. It's just a small trick. If you dare to play in front of my 8.5-star emperor, you'll die. Seeing this, Zhu Shan sneered. He strode forward, and the fighting spirit surged out of his body. His 5 fingers became fists. The fighting spirit in the palm quickly condensed into an ice-blue jiaoshark on the surface of his skin. With one punch, he blasted at one of the fire dragons. There's so much nonsense. Isn't it fun? Let's try this. Bang! Bang! With the gloomy voice in Xiao Yang's mouth, the 2 fire dragons were also buried in the hands of 2 8.5 emperors. They broke the fire dragon with one blow, but their momentum did not decrease. With a wave of their big hand, they broke through the flame waves and rushed in the direction of Xiao Yang. Buddha Anger Reincarnation. When they rushed out of the flames and waves, what came into view was 2 Xiao Yang. This scene made the look on the 2 faces freeze. But when they came back to their senses, Xiao Yang and his avatar gathered together in the reincarnation of Buddha Anger, and the 2 fire discs flew around at a high speed in the hands of 2 Xiao Yang. Under the action of the 2 people's minds, the dark light spot in the middle of the flame will suddenly shocked. Then at the next moment, 2 dark light columns nearly 100 feet suddenly burst out from the hands of the 2 Xiao Yang and flew straight down to the 2 8.5 emperors. No. As a scream came out, although Zhu Shan and Ruoxue wanted to avoid, it was too late. At the moment of shooting, the angry reincarnation of the 2 Buddhas was destroyed by Xiao Yang. The avenue immediately crossed the void and came to the 2 8.5-star emperors. At the same time, The terrorist bombardment also fell on their chests. Boom! With the two roars, between heaven and earth, all the people in Lungsue City saw only two dark pillars of light falling from the sky, like meteorites falling, smashing into Lungsue City, making a sky-shaking sound like thunder, causing dust and fog all over the sky. Under this attack, most of the Lungsue City was shaking. Everyone in the Lungsue City now turned their eyes to the Chen Gate in the east of the Lungsue City, where Xiao Yang and others were. At this moment, everyone in Lungsue City is looking at Xiao Yang in the east of the city with shocking eyes. Many people have come here. In a short moment, the story of Xiao Yang has spread all over most of Lungsue City. While the public were discussing Xiao Yang, the latter was narrowing his eyes and staring at the thick dust below. The look on his face did not appear arrogant because he won the first blow. The two Buddha angry reincarnations just now are powerful, but their strength is only half that of Xiao Yang when he performed them alone. Xiao Yang doesn't think that this alone can defeat the two 8-star-and-a-half emperors, but Xiao Yang is gratified that he is more and more proficient in controlling the great way of emptiness in battle after battle. Of course, although the blow just now was barely acceptable in Xiao Yang's heart, it could be regarded as shocking in the eyes of the people below. After all, if it is said that Xiao Yang once fought against 8-and-a-half emperors without defeat, it is not convincing enough. At present, Xiao Yang blew two 8-and-a-half emperors with the strength of 5-star-and-a-half emperors. This actually appeared in front of them, but they can't help believing it. However, just when everyone was shocked by Xiao Yang's strength, there were two simultaneous startling shouts in the city below. Boy! You dare to show off your ability. You really don't know how to live or die. Get down and die. In the sky, Xiao Yang laughed and looked at the two 8-star-and-a-half emperors in front of him. The two Xiao Yang smiled knowingly and waved forward with big sleeves at the same time. At the next moment, hundreds of glittering and translucent jade bottles flew out of thin air, turned into streamers, and shot at the two 8-and-a-half stars and Emperors Zoshan and Rushirei who came face to face. Among these jade bottles, the palm-sized fire lotus were floating slowly, sending out a terrorist force that was enough to move the strong ones. This jade bottle is the fire lotus bottle that only Xiao Yang can refine. Seeing the oncoming 100 jade bottles, Zhu Shan and Ruoshirei, two 8-star-and-a-half emperors, don't think so. With their strength, they won't worry about Xiao Yang, a 5-star-and-a-half emperor. Boom, boom, boom. But then, after hundreds of fire lotus bottles exploded together, Zhu Shan's face finally changed slightly. What? Hundreds of fire lotus bottles? The power of each fire lotus bottle explosion is no less than the ground-level fighting skills. If so many fire lotus bottles explode together, even if they are semi-imperialist strong, they will not feel good. Of course, Xiao Yang is not stupid enough to think that he can hurt them with this. In the face of 8-stars-and-a-half emperors, only real human-level fighting skills can cause real fatal damage to them. Ordinary fighting skills, in the eyes of other strong people at this level, as long as they are slightly guarded, their effect is the same as tickling. Boy, there are a lot of small skills, but it's a pity. If you only have these means, you'd better roll over and die. Suddenly, from the center of the fire lotus bottle explosion, Zhu Shan's cold drink suddenly came out. Then the fog caused by the explosion was fiercely dispersed, and a figure wrapped in purple rushed out of it. With a wave of his big hand, a long gun appeared in Zhu Shan's hand. He held the long gun in one hand, turned his wrist, pointed the gun tip to Xiao Yang, shook his arm, and the fighting spirit was crazy into the long gun in his hand. Purple lightning also appeared on the surface of the gun body, like a purple thunder snake. At the next moment, Zhu Shan suddenly moved, his right foot stepped on the void, and an earth-shaking noise came out. Zhu Shan's body turned into a purple light in an instant. In an instant, he had appeared in front of Xiao Yang. He pointed a long gun in his hand, and the tip of the gun stabbed Xiao Yang's forehead. The So water on the other side rushed to Xiao Yang's avatar. The avatar's strength was not better than the body. If there was no accident, it fell into the disadvantage. It must have been lost in the hands of So water for a long time. Thunder sting. With a low drink, Zhu Shan shook his whole body again, and the fighting spirit in his body surged wildly. The dazzling purple thunder continued to sweep open, creating invisible space ripples in the surrounding void. Linglia's vigorous wind kept beating on Xiao Yang's face, and his hair danced disorderly. The feeling of almost suffocation made Xiao Yang squint his eyes unconsciously. The gun tip approached quickly, which made Xiao Yang's eyebrows tingle. A trace of red blood slowly flowed down from Xiao Yang's eyebrows, frowned slightly, and a gorgeous color appeared in the dark pupils. Facing Zoshan in front of him, Xiao Yang's heart was not nervous at all. When the long gun hit, Xiao Yang slowly stretched out his palm and grasped it out of thin air, and Xian's heavy ruler immediately stood in front of him. Ding! A sound of metal and iron collision sounded. Xiao Yang's hand holding Xian Chongkai was exposed, his right arm shook, and his left palm slapped on the ruler. He shook with great force, which reluctantly blocked the ensuing terrorist fighting spirit. You have a lot of strength, but with this, you're not my opponent. Get away. Seeing that his attack was forcibly blocked by Xiao Yang, Zhu Shan was surprised that he could resist the attack of the 8-star-and-a-half Emperor without the help of fighting skills, which was enough to prove Xiao Yang's strength. However, this is far from enough for him. The strength gap between the 5-star-and-a-half Emperors and the 8-star-and-a-half Emperors cannot be made up by strength alone. Drink. With a sharp drink, Zhu Shan's arm shook, and his wrist shook violently, while the long gun in his hand was like a long snake, twisting rapidly in his hand. The tip of the gun flew and quickly differentiated into hundreds of fighting energy long guns in Zhu Shan's hands. As soon as the gun body shook, it stabbed Xiao Yang fiercely. 100-turn sky-breaking gun. Drink. Boy, I see how you can stop this time. 100 long guns are like a huge net, completely covering Xiao Yang's front. In this case, Xiao Yang can hardly avoid. Of course, he doesn't need to dodge. Oh. Hide. When did I say I wanted to hide? As the words spewed out, Xiao Yang gradually exerted himself on the palm of Xian Chongqi's hand, and the fighting spirit in his body quickly surged up and merged into the giant kai in his hand. Liuhe swimming ruler. Liuhe fire. Drink. Looking up for a moment, Xiao Yang's eyes were ablaze with fire, like an arrow through the cloud, burning the two long guns facing Xiao Yang into nothingness. When he stepped back half a step, Xiao Yang's momentum was also shocked. There was a great threat between heaven and earth, which quietly spread. The look on many faces in the city could not help changing slightly. The strength of this threat is absolutely far from being comparable to the 5-star-and-a-half Emperor. Xiao Yang, who has the sole power of returning to the realm of unity, with his strength that is beyond his own level, is not comparable to the ordinary 5-star-and-a-half Emperor. The next moment, at the moment when the 100 long guns were close to Xiao Yang's body, Xiao Yang suddenly waved the huge ruler in his hand. The flexibility of the wide and strong giant ruler in Xiao Yang's hand was much better than Zhu Shan's long gun. Even if the latter saw it, he could not help feeling a surprise in his heart. When the giant ruler was like a light sword flying in Xiao Yang's hand, the fierce and domineering ruler front picked out all the long guns with an extremely clever and strange angle. At the same time, the terrible strength contained in it also smashed the fighting long gun with a bang, turned into a light point of energy in the sky and dissipated between heaven and earth. When Xiao Yang indifferently picked out the last long gun, Zhu Shan also stepped back with an ugly face. Unexpectedly, his flawless blow would be defeated in Xiao Yang's hands. What humiliated him most was that hundreds of long guns had never broken through the huge protection in Xiao Yang's hands from beginning to end. Little bastard. Look, I won't clean you up myself. Zhu Shan's body suddenly flashed in front of Xiao Yang. With a wave of his arm, the long gun in his hand swept out. The sharp tip of the gun drew a purple thunder in the void. The thunder condensed into essence, turned into a thunder containing a spirit of terror, and rushed towards Xiao Yang. At the same time, Zhu Shan turned and came behind Xiao Yang. The long gun in his hand suddenly waved and stabbed forward, which also rushed to Xiao Yang again. Looking at the two terrible breath from front to back, Xiao Yang's mouth slowly aroused a sneer, his eyes narrowed, his heavy ruler's backhand was included in the ring, his heart moved, the strange energy painted black between heaven and earth quickly condensed, and the avenue gauze slowly appeared on Xiao Yang's body surface. Oh, enough fun, I'll solve you once. While the avenue gauze clothes appeared, in Xiao Yang's hands, cumbersome printing formulas also quickly emerged. With the appearance of these printing formulas, within 10 feet of Xiao Yang's body, 6 space tents condensed by the void avenue also slowly emerged. The 6 tabernacles surrounded Xiao Yang in 6 different directions. With the emergence of the 6 tabernacles, Xiao Yang's face quickly turned pale. Obviously, it was also an extremely huge consumption for him to use the space tabernacle. At the moment when the 6 tabernacles were gathered, Zhu Shan's spear came to the center of Xiao Yang's eyebrow less than an inch away. Next, just 1 inch more into the spear, and Xiao Yang would be immediately killed under the spear. However, the powerful gun tip pierced Xiao Yang's head directly, but it didn't bring a trace of blood, and even the sound of skull rupture didn't come out. This remnant shadow. Suddenly, Zhu Shan's heart seemed to have been hit by a heavy hammer. It's hard to imagine that within this distance, Xiao Yang the moment before, but there was no sign of evasion. Even just now, he didn't feel the fluctuation of fixed-point space. How did Xiao Yang disappear in front of him? This is a semi-emperor strong man. It's impossible to face him without leaving a trace. It's impossible. Bang! It was a loud noise, and the oncoming thunder hit Zhou Shan hard when he was absent-minded. Injured by his own attack, Zhou Shan was quite angry when he recovered. Of course, he was more surprised. After an instant, he immediately noticed that there was a breath fluctuation behind him, but when he turned and looked back, Xiao Yang's figure unexpectedly appeared in the position of one of the 6 tabernacles. At the same time, in Xiao Yang's hands, the painted black giant ruler has been rendered into a red color from the inside to the outside, and an extremely terrible smell of destruction has continuously spread out. 7 broken sky feet, 1 foot. The cry fell, Xiao Yang's huge foot fell, and the rainbow light shot fiercely, blocking all the sight of Zhou Shan. Although he was injured, Zhou Shan didn't dare to stay any longer. Once he turned his long gun, the surging fighting spirit in his body poured out madly and poured into the long gun in his hand. Thunder waterfall. It was also a fierce drink, and Zhou Shan's long gun stabbed out. The purple fighting spirit quickly condensed 100 jong tall thunder wave in front of him, which was as powerful as a rainbow, and rushed straight to the oncoming 7 heavy breaking ruler. Zhou Shan's face was cold and stern. He was confident that his move would never be weak with Xiao Yang. Even if the latter took the lead, he could not help him. However, just when Zhou Shan secretly sneered in his heart, the next moment, from behind him, another fierce drink came out again, and this time, it was another of the 6 tabernacles. 7 feet, 2 feet. The space tent is a method of controlling the void avenue that Xiao Yang realized after swallowing countless thunder in the thunder pool. This method can enable Xiao Yang to make a space jump in a very short time, and the speed of space jump is unmatched by even 9 stars and half emperors. Therefore, it can be called another big card of Xiao Yang today. With Xiao Yang's current ability, he can only gather a space tent within 10 feet of his body. Therefore, it's not practical to want to escape in actual combat. As for actual combat, Xiao Yang has a very good idea. 7 feet. 5 feet. On the void, Xiao Yang's figure disappeared at the moment before reappeared. At the same time, one of the 6 tabernacles also dispersed. At the moment of Xiao Yang's appearance, the broad and heavy ruler in his hand also fell down. He shouted in his mouth. A red fighting light flashed across the huge ruler's front. At the next moment, a magnificent ruler's horn shot out of the ruler's front to meet the storm, turned into a magnificent ruler's horn into 100 feet into Zhou Shan, who was resisting the 4th ruler's horn at the moment. Bang! With one blow, Zhou Shan could not avoid it. This foot completely fell on him. The terrorist power contained in it also broke out at this moment. When the violent bang fell, Zhou Shan's body flew backward uncontrollably. A big mouthful of blood gushed out of his mouth, and the whole person's breath became weak. Connecting 5 feet in such a short time is a great load for him. Moreover, each foot of Xiao Yang is equivalent to a human-level fighting skill. In this way, even if Zhou Shan is an 8-star and a half emperor, he can't bear it. When this scene appeared, the crowd below couldn't help but hiss. Obviously, even though I have heard about Xiao Yang's achievements, it's better to hear than to see. At the moment, I saw Zhou Shan, a strong 8-star and half emperor, who was beaten by Xiao Yang, a 5-star and half emperor, and vomited blood, which shocked everyone even more about Xiao Yang's strength. At the same time, the name of the rock owl was quickly remembered by the people in Lungtsue City. Compared with the people's horror, Xiao Yang is much calmer. Although he is equally confident in his 5-foot strength, at the same time, he also knows that only these 5 feet can only hurt Zhou Shan at most. However, if he wants to really hit the latter, he is still a line short. Therefore, after the 5th foot, Xiao Yang didn't dare to hesitate. His heart moved. His black robe suddenly stirred up, and the black light suddenly shocked and wrapped Xiao Yang. In a twinkling, Xiao Yang's body disappeared, while at the same time, another place, the last of the 6 tabernacles, the dark heavy ruler, did not know when it was already full in the void. The powerful palm clenched the giant ruler, and the red flame light rose into the sky. The surging momentum shocked the world. When all the people present looked at the ruler, their eyes couldn't help showing a deep dignified look. Even if it is as strong as half-emperor, looking at Xiao Yang's eyes at the moment, it also shows a deep fear. How can such a person be an ordinary person if he can burst out such strong power with the cultivation of 5-star and half-emperor? 7 feet. 6 feet. A low drink came out, 6 feet waved, the momentum broke the sky, a hot fighting wave swept rapidly, and the temperature between heaven and earth also increased suddenly. As the giant ruler was wielded, another startling ruler orn stood between heaven and earth, like a red Jotian waterfall, hanging thousands of feet. Even the semi-emperor and the strong were ashamed of the destruction contained in it. If this blow falls, even if Zhu Shan doesn't die, it will inevitably be the end of serious injury. But at the next moment, drink. Boy, you're crazy. I'm afraid you've forgotten that you still have this master here. At the critical moment, the other 8-star and a half Emperor Ruxure, who had fought with Xiao Yang's avatar, arrived in time at this moment. With a wave of his arm, a thin and long green light long sword appeared in the latter's hand. If water sword. When the sword came out, the water cut down vertically, and a green light suddenly burst out to meet the rising storm. It was also turned into a 10,000 feet of startling practice, and fiercely greeted Xiao Yang's foot Mang. Boom! The deafening horror boom suddenly swept through, and the dazzling white light covered the sun's brightness. At this moment, the sky and the earth were shining white, and everyone could not open their eyes. Under the sharp white light like a sword, even with their eyes closed, they could not completely avoid it. Under the cover of this white light, even the battle circle between Xiao Jinbei Wang and the middle-aged man on the other side was also forced to stop. It can be seen that the power of this collision between Xiao Yang and So Water is how huge. After a long time, when the white light dispersed, they moved their hands covering their eyes, their eyelids trembled, and the familiar sunlight shone into their eyes. The world in front of them also became practical. When people looked up, the two battle circles in the sky were forced to stop because of this fierce collision, but looking at the increasingly tense atmosphere at the moment, it seemed that a more terrible storm was brewing. The middle-aged man looked solemnly at Bei Wang and Xiao Jin. Under the joint attack of the two 9-star and half emperors, although he was the strongest in the field at the moment, he was also the most embarrassed person. The majesty of the 9-star and a half emperor is gone, and the vast and majestic fighting spirit becomes weak, just like it is no longer supported. It is only a matter of time to lose. In contrast, Bei Wang and Xiao Jin, the black thunder enveloping Bei Wang's body is more powerful at the moment. In the battle, the thunder that has not been refined in his body is gradually swallowed by him, and the strength of his whole body is stronger and braver. Xiao Jin's eyes are full of excitement. Since the breakthrough, he has not really had a hearty war. Even the war with Mu Han also ended hastily, so that Xiao Jin's strength cannot be brought into play. The war at the moment is a kind of help for him. Boy, your strength is really much stronger than we thought. If Zhu Shan faces you alone, he has no way to live today, but unfortunately, we are two people. You face two 8-star and half emperors alone and want to defeat us, which is absolutely impossible. So Shui stared coldly at Xiao Yang, who was slightly weak in the opposite breath. In his fierce eyes, he cast solemn eyes on Xiao Yang from time to time. No matter whether Xiao Yang is defeated today or not, he faces two 8-star and a half emperors. This record is enough to make him proud of everyone. Xiao Yang looks a little weak at the moment. After casting 6 space tents, plus casting 7 times to break the sky ruler, it can be regarded as a great morale consumption for Xiao Yang. At this time, Xiao Yang had less than 3/5 of the fighting spirit left in his body, which is enough to see how huge the consumption of fighting spirit is when the space curtain is used. Of course, what can be seen is that while Xiao Yang's fighting spirit is rapidly consumed, the effect of the space tent is also greatly beyond Xiao Yang's expectation. This unexpected and rapid attack can cause great psychological pressure on the opponent. At the same time, it also greatly increases Xiao Yang's chances of victory in the battle. This is undoubtedly a very good attack means for Xiao Yang, who is often at the forefront of the storm. Although this bombardment seems a little negative, Xiao Yang also understands it in his heart. Born in troubled times, if you want to live, sometimes you have to rely on all kinds of means. Powerful fighting skills, strange body methods, magical mysteries, soul power, pills, arrays, etc. These are not all the means of practitioners. Under the temptation and drive of power, everyone is actively or passively developing in this direction. In many cases, the type of means cannot determine a person's nature. Just as people do not talk about appearance, seemingly beautiful things are not necessarily beautiful, and the use of means varies from person to person. When people are good, things are good, and when people are evil, things are evil. Old bone, can you give me a hand? Xiao Yang exhaled deeply, looked up slowly and looked at the opposite water. On one side, Zhu Shan's slightly weak figure also rose in the air again. His eyes stared at Xiao Yang darkly, showing a sense of fear in the depths of his pupils. He had never thought that he would eat so much in the hands of a 5-star and half emperor. Xiao Yang looked at Zhu Shan and Ruoxue, and said low in his heart. At the same time, the fighting spirit in his body rushed up at the moment. Call dash. Between heaven and earth, a sharp wind suddenly roared. Xiao Yang stood in the wind. The invisible wind roll swept towards the 4 directions with Xiao Yang as the center. Xiao Yang's heart moved. With a puff, gorgeous strange fire burst out from the soles of his feet and quickly spread over Xiao Yang's whole body. A terrible breath spread rapidly on Xiao Yang. Everyone present changed his face at this moment. In the sky, Zhu Shan and Ruoxue felt the strong breath from Xiao Yang's body. Their faces also changed slightly and looked at each other. They both showed a solemn color in their eyes. This boy is weird. Don't be careless. Work together and solve him. As long as you take him, you and I can be promoted to the 9-star and half emperor. Zhu Shan gave a sharp drink at the same time in the water mouth. Then he moved, and his fighting spirit was crazy. He rushed over to Xiao Yang. Facing the 2 people coming from the storm, Xiao Yang slowly raised his eyes wrapped in the flame, stared at them and said secretly in his heart. Ejia fighting skill. Broken. Heart. Palm. Western regions, Lungtsue City. In the sky, Xiao Yang's whole body exudes an extremely terrible breath. His 2 white palms are stiff and stagnant in the void. His palms fall and people die. When Xiao Yang took back his palm with cold light in his eyes, Zhu Shan and Ruoxue, who had originally rushed towards Xiao Yang, suddenly stagnated. When they looked down, Xiao Yang's hands, but I didn't know when they had pressed on their hearts. At the same time, behind Xiao Yang, the 7th tent also dissipated. After fighting with all his strength, Xiao Yang gathered the 7th tent and killed the 2 8.5 emperors in front of him with a real lightning speed and the terrible power of broken heart palm. When Xiao Yang's palm fell on their hearts, all the fighting spirit in Xiao Yang's body was consumed. With all the fighting spirit and the help of bone quiet in his body, the terrible energy condensed in Xiao Yang's 2 palms. With Xiao Yang's heart moving, the terrible energy burst out in an instant. When Zhu Shan and Ruoxue came back to their senses, they only felt a tearing pain in their hearts. Then, a domineering spirit of terror appeared in their bodies without warning. The moment the fighting spirit appeared, it immediately raged wildly in the bodies of Zhu Shan and Ruoxue. When the 2 people were unprepared, this terrible fighting spirit almost destroyed their bodies, shattered all internal organs and meridians, and destroyed their souls under this force. With the infinite dilation of the pupil, all the vitality in the eyes of the 2 8.5-star emperors dissipated rapidly at the moment. At the same time, in the palm of my hand, there was a surge of terror, but in the next moment, it dissipated freely between the heaven and earth like a breeze. So far, there are 2 more powerful 8-star and half emperor who fell under Xiao Yang's palm. It has to be said that the horror of Italian-level fighting skills is really not comparable to ordinary fighting skills. Even though today's Xiao Yang can't give full play to all the powers of the broken heart palm, that's the case. The 2 8-star and a half emperors, which few people can defeat in ordinary days, are killed in a second under Xiao Yang's palm at the moment. Italian-level fighting skills are really terrible. It's hard to imagine how terrible it would be if Xiao Yang could exert all the power of broken heart palm in the future. I'm afraid that even the strong fighting emperor will no longer be Xiao Yang's opponent. Not to mention what will happen in the future, but at present, the fall of 2 8-star and a half emperor strong men actually appeared in front of everyone. In Lungtsue City, countless people were stunned at the scene in the sky. Xiao Yang stood in the void and put his hands in the posture of clapping forward. Opposite, 2 bodies that had lost all their vitality lay back at the moment. Under everyone's eyes, they smashed into the city below. Bang! With a dull bang, the 2 bodies were deeply embedded in the ground, raising the dust all over the sky. The breeze caressed the dust and fog dispersed. The people also saw the 2 people in the pit. Even if the body is dead, the semi-imperial strong is the semi-imperial strong. Except for no vitality, its body is intact after being smashed from such a high distance. This, from the side, confirms the strength of the semi-imperial strong. It's just a pity that no matter how powerful it is still vulnerable in front of the level fighting skills. Of course, if they were prepared in advance for Xiao Yang's blow just now, the result would naturally be 2 statements. However, there is no if in this world after all. The reality is like this. It seems powerful, but it is vulnerable. Puff! In the sky, Xiao Yang suddenly couldn't help spewing out a big mouthful of blood. At the same time, the whole person's face quickly turned white, and his breath quickly became weak. It seemed that he had reached the end of the crossbow. In the state just now, he forced to cast the broken heart palm. Although he had the help of Bonu, the terrible power still caused a certain amount of backbite damage to Xiao Yang, but it was undoubtedly much better than the death of Zhu Shan and Ruo Shui. His body shook and landed on the gate. Xiao Yang quickly took 2 imperial pills as a supplement. With the entrance of the pill, the gentle fighting spirit quickly turned into clear springs flowing all over Xiao Yang's body. Some wounds left by the use of heartbreaking palm were slowly repaired at this moment. On the other side, when the middle-aged man saw that his 2 right-hand assistants were killed by Xiao Yang, a look of fear rushed into his heart. Therefore, it left a huge flaw for Beiwang and Xiaojin. It was no different from dying to expose flaws in the semi-emperor level war. Therefore, in a short time, the middle-aged man was obviously at a disadvantage. After Xiao Yang fell on the gate of the city, the middle-aged man finally made a careless move and was caught by the North King and hit his vest hard. Although the North King is only a puppet, because of the special refining method, the North Dragon King's lifelong combat experience and combat skills are also in the North King's indifferent thoughts. Therefore, the result of this blow is to immediately make a lasting war situation appear. With one punch, the middle-aged man's body was no longer under his control. At the same time, Xiao Jin also took advantage of the victory. A terrible golden thunder fell and hit the middle-aged man. With a strong burning smell dispersed, the middle-aged man's breath also fell to the bottom of the valley. Even if there was no serious injury, it was not far away. Bang! Under the power of thunder, the middle-aged man was severely smashed into the city below. The power of terror caused the whole Lungsue city to shake violently. When everyone looked intently, in the huge pit, the middle-aged man at the moment was blackened all over, and nothing could be seen on his bare head. His brocade robe was blown into nothingness under the thunder, and the man was lying naked in the pit. This scene also made some beautiful practitioners in the crowd frown and turn around, retreated behind the crowd. The middle-aged man's embarrassed appearance, seen in the eyes of the public, can't help but get a lot of ridicule, but at the moment, he has no time to pay attention to those cynical eyes and words. At the moment, the most important thing in the heart of the middle-aged man is his own life. He did not expect that Xiao Yang's overall strength would be so much stronger than what was said in the news. In terms of the strong 9-star and half-emperor, Xiao Yang had more than him. Moreover, the news said that Xiao Yang could defeat 1 8-star and half-emperor at most, but at the moment, he killed 2 8-star and half-emperors in a second under the eyes of thousands of people. Staring at Xiao Yang above the city gate, the middle-aged man suddenly retreated. Judging from the strength that Xiao Yang is sitting on at the moment, he can't be his opponent at all. Instead of fighting hard, he might as well retreat first. As for those who come, they will come. At that time, Xiao Yang has left, so he can't help him. With this in mind, the middle-aged man's eyes slowly narrowed, his deep eyes stared at Xiao Yang, and the remaining light from the corner of his eyes looked at Beiwang and Xiaojin who were surrounded again. Cough. The middle-aged man staggered back, and his earthy fighting spirit condensed into a yellow shirt. While Beiwang Xiaojin was getting closer and closer, he stared at Xiao Yang and shouted in a slightly weak tone. Why do you make such a decision? Now I have been defeated by you. If you want to leave, just leave, I will never stop you. But if you insist on your own way, you have to stay alive. Even if I die, I believe you will not get any benefit. Noisy. Hearing the voice of the middle-aged man's slight weakness, Xiao Yang said a word indifferently, secretly said to little King Jin, and concentrated on refining the imperial pill in his body. At the moment, Xiao Yang's most important thing is the injury in his body. Although the middle-aged man has been defeated, the sense of danger in Xiao Yang's heart is getting stronger and stronger. He can always vaguely detect that a danger is approaching him at a high speed. Now he wants to retreat, I'm afraid it's too late. Therefore, Xiao Yang was more curious about the reason why the middle-aged man stopped him. Since it is inevitable, it is better to understand the whole situation in advance. In the city, Xiao Jin and Bei Wang rushed to the middle-aged man again when Xiao Yang entered the state of cultivation. Seeing this, the middle-aged man suddenly showed a dignified color on his face. At this moment, a few fighting qi in his body surged rapidly, condensing a pair of earthy yellow fighting qi armor on his body surface. A pair of dark eyes also surged with earthy yellow light. Drink. At the next moment, the 3 figures collided with each other again. Cloud-hidden pavilion in Lungsue City. Luo Jin and Zhong Yi are watching the scene in the east of the city in the attic. Luo Jin's face is a little surprised. He is secretly surprised. Xiao Yang's control over the Void Avenue is more and more handy, As for Zhongyi, if he had doubts about Xiao Yang's rumors before, at the moment, he saw Xiao Yang kill 2.5 emperors with his own eyes, which made him have to treat Xiao Yang seriously. The fighting skill he just showed should be an Italian-level fighting skill. It can destroy Zhu Shan and Ruoshui's body and soul together. There should be no other way except the Italian-level fighting skill. Zhongyi looked at Xiao Yang from a distance and said in a slightly low tone, "Well, it's true that Yi's fighting skills are good. It's just that he can't give full play to the full power of this fighting skill with his current strength." Luo Jin also nodded and said. Zhongyi also nodded. Naturally, he could see this. However, what made him feel a little strange was that he could show his mind-level fighting skills in the state of Xiao Yang just now. Although Xiao Yang's own combat power is far beyond the level, this is not the reason why Xiao Yang uses the Italian-level fighting skill across the fighting spirit. But since this is the case, how does he use the Italian-level fighting skill? Zhongyi frowned on his old face, and his heart was full of questions about it. On the other hand, the middle-aged man was under the dual offensive of Beiwang and Xiaojin, but he was overwhelmed and helpless. When the middle-aged man was defeated, the North King grabbed the former's throat. The middle-aged man was picked up by the North King weakly and threw him in front of Xiao Yang like a dead chicken. Puff! As soon as he landed, the middle-aged man couldn't help spitting out a mouthful of blood. The whole man's breath was extremely depressed, and he was seriously injured and killed. Xiao Yang, who was practicing, slowly opened his eyes and felt the slightly recovered fighting spirit in his body. He looked indifferently at the middle-aged man who was seriously injured in front of him and said indifferently, "Tell me, who sent you to intercept me? Tell me, I can't kill you." Well, the middle-aged man trembled and sobbed vaguely, but he couldn't spit out half a word. Seeing this, Xiao Yang's eyes narrowed slowly, and a cold light shone from his pupils. Since the guy in front of him didn't want to say, he didn't bother to pay more attention. Xiao Yang wouldn't leave any hidden dangers to himself. Since he had moved his hand, he naturally wouldn't leave any hidden dangers to himself. When the heart was moved, the figure of the North King came through the air and stepped on the chest of the middle-aged man. For a while, blood splashed everywhere and gushed like a spring. To his friends, Xiao Yang would do anything, but to his enemies, he wouldn't mind more. Xiao Yang's heart moved. Beiwang kicked the middle-aged man in the abdomen. Under this powerful kick, the latter's body was blown out of control. The North King bullied the body, clenched his iron fist, and hit the latter's head fiercely. If this fist goes on, even if the middle-aged man is the body of the 9.5 emperor, he will inevitably die. However, at the next moment, between heaven and earth, an old voice with a little surprise sounded suddenly. "Hee hee. Boy, I can't imagine that you can grow to such a level in 2 years. Even the 9.5 emperor are no longer your opponent. If you can, I really want to accept you as a disciple, but it's a pity. It's fate that you must die in my hands today." With the spread of the old voice, the whole Lungsue city was suddenly shrouded by a terrible momentum. It seemed that there was an invisible Mount Tai between heaven and earth, which was pressed on everyone's head. Under this breath, even if it was as strong as 9.5 emperors, it was the only way to bow down and become a minister. Xiao Yang on the east gate of the city also became dignified when the momentum came. From his perspective, the strength of the breath in front of him was comparable to that of all the people he knew, that is, Qingfeng of the Shenling family. In that case, it is not difficult to guess the strength of this person. Obviously, the one who came to Lungsue City at the moment seems to be a real fighter. In Lungsue City, the fighting emperor is coming. Dodi. He slowly stood up from the gate. Xiao Yang looked around at the world around him with a dignified face. He was shocked in his heart. He doesn't know who this person is, but he knows one thing. From the old words just now, he can hear that the person coming must be for him. As for the identity of the other party, in Xiao Yang's impression, he has never provoked a guy at the level of fighting emperor, so he doesn't know this person at all. "I don't know who the elder is. The younger Yang Xiao is here for the first time. If you offend me, I hope the elder can forgive me. As for this, if the elder wants to protect him, I can let him go in the face of the elder." Xiao Yang glanced around warily and said in a tone of Gongjin. At the same time, in the center of his eyebrows, all the remaining soul forces poured out at the moment and swept rapidly in all directions. Before he knew the identity of the other party, all the exploration means Xiao Yang would use were revealed at the moment. After all, what Xiao Yang is facing at the moment, but the real strong fighting emperors are many times stronger than their pseudo-emperors. Once he starts, in front of the strong fighting emperor, all the means of the strong half-emperor will turn into useless things. No matter how strong Xiao Yang is, he can defeat the 9-star half-emperor, but in the face of the real fighting emperor, he will not have any chance to resist. After Xiao Yang's words came out, everyone in the city below couldn't help feeling suspicious. Xiao Yang is sitting in front of him for 2 knights, 9 stars, and a half-emperors. In this cold emerald city, he can be called a terrible existence to walk sideways. But in this case, who will be the person who can make Xiao Yang shout for the elder at the moment? You know, under the protection of 2 9.5 emperors, in the cold emerald city at the moment, unless Do Di comes, it is absolutely impossible for anyone to make Xiao Yang willing to bow his head. At the thought of this, the people in the city immediately returned to their senses. In that case, looking at Xiao Yang's appearance at the moment, the old man who just spoke is obviously a super strong man with strength up to the level of fighting emperor. Wow dash. When the public wanted to understand this, the whole Lungtsue Chengdun time was boiling, and many people whispered head to head. People are also more and more curious about Xiao Yang on the gate at the moment. It has a terrorist strength beyond its own level, and has 2 9-star and half-emperors to escort it. It is blocked by the 9-star and half-emperors. At the moment, it has attracted the strong fighting emperor. What is the identity of the black-robed youth in front of you? On the other side, when Xiao Yang and the people in the city were shocked, in the cloud pavilion at the moment, Zhong Yi's originally calm face was also filled with a deeply dignified color at the moment when the old voice came out. Luo Jin, on his side, also frowned and felt the invisible pressure. He could predict that the old man's strength was at least above the level of fighting emperor. Listening to his words just now, the meaning was obviously directed at Xiao Yang. Thinking of this, Luo Jin could not help but feel a headache for Xiao Yang. At the same time, his heart was also stunned by it. In the southern regions, it's okay to provoke the semi-imperial strongman. At least with the support of the North King and Xiaojin, and Xiao Yang's own strength is not weak, he can be regarded as downwind and downwater under the Do Emperor. But who would have expected that Xiao Yang would be a little restrained when he arrived in the western regions? As long as he was careful, he would not be met by the people of the 4 main sects. But it was at this time that Xiao Yang just arrived in the western regions. Someone came to the door immediately. Luo Jin couldn't help scolding Xiao Yang countless times in his heart. It's a pity that before Xiao Yang left Union Pavilion, Luo Jin had told him, but at the moment, his words were obviously in vain. Of course, it can't be entirely Xiao Yang's fault. After all, his heart is also full of curiosity about the strong man fighting the emperor at the moment. He had never met the latter at all, but in that case, where did the strong man come from? Moreover, listening to the meaning of his words, he seemed to know quite well about his affairs in the wild ancient city. When Xiao Yang's words fell, there was still no human shadow in the surrounding world, but the atmosphere over Lungtsue city became more and more oppressed. It was originally a sunny and cloudless Lungtsue city. At this moment, invisibly, it seemed that there was a large dark cloud shrouding the whole heaven and earth, causing the crowd below to stir up. Who are you? If you have something to do, please come forward and see me. If you have nothing to do, I'll leave first. Xiao Yang looked pale at the sky above his head. Although the sky was clear at the moment, what appeared in his eyes was a dark cloud. The heavy atmosphere was like a Mount Tai on his head. The terrible pressure almost made him out of breath. With a move in mind, Beiwang and Xiaojin returned to both sides of Xiao Yang's body. Beiwang's body like an iron tower stood still. Virtually, a hegemonic threat spread out to resist the relative threat of fighting the emperor. Roar. At the same time, Xiaojin on one side also changed. The huge dragon body soared into the sky. The roaring dragon roared into the sky, golden and thunderous. An equally powerful pressure spread from Xiaojin's body. Xiao Yang only felt that his whole body was slightly loose. Under that pressure, his slightly bent waist was also able to straighten up. Hey! Seeing that Xiaojin was able to slightly resist the pressure of his fighting emperor level with the strength of the 9-star and half emperor, he couldn't help but hear a slightly surprised sound somewhere in the void. Are you the rock owl? The rock owl that everyone knows in the wild ancient city of southern regions? As another old light laughter came out, Xiao Yang's dignified face became more and more heavy in an instant. Listening to this voice, it is obviously different from the owner of the voice just now. This is another strong fighter. As soon as he thought of this, Xiao Yang's heart suddenly felt like lightning, and he felt a great shock. He couldn't think of when and where he had provoked the strong at the level of fighting emperor. Since arriving in Yuanwu mainland, Xiao Yang has come into contact with all the enemies so far. The strongest one is only the 9-star and half emperor. But in that case, where do the 2 strong fighting emperors come from? There was no resentment in the past and no hatred in recent days. They can't wait for him in Lungsue City for no reason. There must be some reason in this. This video will end here.